Hey, what's up, everyone? This is David Greenspan, and you are listening to Season 2 of the Mindshare Podcast, a proud member of the Industry Syndicate Media Network. Additional podcasts are available at mindshare101.com and on all of the major podcast platforms. This week's episode is sponsored by Kit's Keep in Touch Systems. This is episode 70. He's the co-founder and president and CEO of Dominion Lending Centers, the CEO of Mortgage Center Canada, and chairman of Mortgage Architects. Together, these companies account for almost 40% of all broker-originated mortgages in Canada. He is a serial entrepreneur, having sold 2 prior companies to the public market, and has been recognized as a finalist for the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year in 2011 and earned the Tri-Cities Chamber of Commerce Business Leader of the Year in 2016. His companies have also won multiple industry awards and have been recognized by Profit Magazine as among Canada's fastest growing companies. As a business and industry leader, he is called upon to share his views with media throughout Canada. He was part of the 2011 pre-budget consultation process with the Federal Minister of Finance, and he was selected to be part of CBC's Face the Nation in 2016, having an open, frank discussion with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau on a variety of economic topics. He has led multiple socially conscious initiatives as the co-founder and president of the I Am Someone Ending Bullying Society, and recently co-founded Bikes for Kids, a national program that collects new bicycles for underprivileged children across Canada. And speaking of bikes, he also, like me, enjoys riding his Harley. On this episode, I am joined by Mr. Gary Mauris. Gary, welcome to the Mindshare Podcast. Now, a quick side note. Recording for this episode started about 2 minutes in, so we're going to pick this up mid-sentence.
We, in fact, are witnessing history.
We certainly are. This is a new time for us, and I think that a lot of the conversation we're going to get out of today is going to be very helpful to many, especially within, never mind just our real estate industry, but anybody else that's listening in. I know you got some awesome stuff to share for us. So just to kind of, sort of set this up here, you've started over some time here a little bit to get a bit of a sense of Mindshare 101, the education value, that we work to consistently deliver to our real estate and mortgage industry. And our audience right now that is listening is made up of both of these lines of business, along with small business owners and entrepreneurs. And my goal is always to share best practices and add value so that everyone can have something to walk away with from each episode. Now, as we said, we are in a time in our world right now that we've never experienced anything like this before. And
Sure.
Although we're being told to stay home and practice social distancing, I don't believe that it means that we should totally up and stop building mindshare and having open lines of communication with people. Realtors across the country have been confused about how to carry on, and based on the perception of the public and even their peers. And I know the mortgage industry is in the same shoes, and off the heels of the government's decision, as we were saying just before we got on air, to consider real estate as an essential service. What are you recommending that your people do to manage their business right now while taking public perception into account?
So, listen, we're in a very scary time, right? There's a lot of angst out there and a lot of concern by, people in North America, in Canada, and actually throughout the world. And, I think first off, as industry leaders, we have to lead by example, and we have to take this incredibly serious. We are early days of transmission and transfer of this COVID-19, and us as a company about a week and a half ago moved everyone home. So we run multiple mortgage companies in Canada. We have about 150 head office staff and about 6,000 brokers across the country. So, getting them set up and operational at home has been pivotal for us. And it's been interesting, because for the most part, we've been able to do it, like many others, easier than we had anticipated. The most important thing that we believe in going forward here, that I think is meaningful for whatever industry you're in, is to over communicate. Communicate. There's a lot of people right now that are absolutely terrified of the prospect of unemployment, of work outages, um, how they're going to take care of their family, how long is this going to last. And it's our job as leaders to be, the beacon of hope, and to be, what I said to my team, to be the CNN of all things, finance in the Canadian economy, so that we can help alleviate some of those fears.
I love the way you put that, because I've been preaching that now for the past couple of weeks. I mean, I look, that's what Mindshare is about. Is all about communication, just getting out there and being a conduit of that. And that's something big that I've been talking to people about is that open line of communication with people, between family, friends, loved ones, right down to colleagues, clients, your peers. Just communicate with people. And I think the more we communicate with people, the more we're out there doing that. And again, doing it in what I sort of said yesterday in another conversation, was in a selfless way.
Sure.
Of how can we help people? What can we do to really be out there and assist and just provide information? Value is defined as education, motivation, inspiration, information. How can you just get that out there? How can you provide value to people and help them get through this time? So with that, then, what are some communication and maybe even education initiatives that you guys are doing? Because that's a lot of people that you guys have working on you.
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, number one, it's easier to communicate than ever before. I mean, with the, onset of social media, and all of those channels that are available to us, it's never been easier to communicate. I mean, we grew up at a time, David, when if we wanted to communicate, we picked up the telephone and called 100 people. And it took us a long time to do that. Now we push a button, and in a matter of seconds, we have informed, thousands and thousands of people. So from our perspective, we have built and launched a COVID-19, a Dominion Lending /COVID-19 website. And it is a resource for anyone in the financial space. It is a resource for all of the contacts at all of Canada's major lenders. It is a resource to the government programs. It explains what's available in the processes, how lenders are handling mortgage deferrals. And then we're providing a lot of, video and a lot of content that our agents can share to all of their customers as well. And, it's very fluid right now. I mean, it's moving incredibly quickly. One of the things that I truly believe on, if we're going to be at home and say self-isolated, there's never been a better time to work on personal development, number one. And there's so much available out there right now online. There's so much, great information. And we live in a very frenzied, harried world. And it's very difficult sometimes to keep up to date on some of that stuff. But, there's never been more information available. And, it's times like this that we can spend working on ourselves and our communication. Things like you just said, reaching out, just checking in with all of your customers. I don't care if you sold them a home 30 days ago or if it was 5 years ago, start at the oldest and go to the newest, and just, hey, it's Gary calling from Dominion Lending Centers, and I just want to check in. Is everything okay? I know it's a time of uncertainty right now. We're very close with mortgage professionals. Can I, help you look at your alternatives around there? Do you want information or links on mortgage deferrals? Anything that people are going to find helpful. This is an incredible time to build that social equity, because when we get through this, our clients that we've dealt with, are going to remember during the most sensitive times that we've actually been proactive, and we're checking in with the, sheer focus of, just being a voice, listening, and maybe giving some suggestions and guidance for those who are maybe uncertain and confused.
And well said on that. I mean, I've been saying very much the same thing. This is, personal development, I think, is huge. I think everybody has to have that as part of their DMO on a regular basis, their daily method of operation. I know for myself, I try to make it a point to read for 30 minutes a day. And I've broken that out. And I mean, now I listen, they're audible, because again, for me, I find it difficult sometimes to buckle down and focus on reading the pages, but I love to listen to them. I can do that while I'm driving. I can do that while I'm doing, personal things around the house. And to that, I mean, when you break it down and go 30 minutes a day, you can actually get through probably about 24 books a year. And much the same where, we get up and we eat when we're hungry, and we feed the belly and get the energy for the body. Personal development is food for the brain. And that could be reading books, that could be listening to books, that could be watching videos, but there is a wealth of options that are out there for everybody. And much the same, I echo that and say everybody should be taking the opportunity right now to build some of that into your routine. Some of the silver lining, I mean, the radio show that I was on just before we came to air here today, they said, what are some of these things? And when you look at the silver lining in this, a lot of people complain about time on a regular basis. I know you're an incredibly busy guy. Everybody says they're incredibly busy. Everybody says they don't have enough time. We're in a moment right now where we've got time to increase personal development. We've got time to, spend time with family and loved ones that we don't get to spend with on a regular basis. We've got time to make the phone calls that we typically don't make. And those phone calls are gold.
Sure.
I'm encouraging everybody on a regular basis. You should be making those calls at all times.
Of course, yeah.
That said, where everybody complains again about time or not knowing what to say in a time like this, and it doesn't have to be a business call. When you're going through from the oldest to the newest, I love how you said that. Same thing. So what do I say? Well, identify who the people are. Figure out, are these people young families? So what are you doing with your kids right now? Here's what I'm doing with my kids right now. Let's talk about that. Hope everybody's doing well. Next. Write your notes, know when you called, know what you said, and move on. Folks that might be elderly, that need some assistance in some places, what can you do to help them? Be it somehow doing something online that gets delivered, or maybe physically going out there and dropping something on the doorstep and leaving. How can you help people? It is a massive opportunity right now to really change maybe even some of the bad habits, the complacent habits that we've got out there in our industry.
It's funny because I look at just, our businesses, and I look at our top agents in the country, and I compare them to, the rest of the country. It's the old Pareto principle, right? 20% of the agents do 80% of the activity or the business. And it's not that they have any better, systems or tools. It's that they have better habits.
Yeah.
And, I always say to people, don't worry about CRMs and you have to have all that stuff in different, technologies. Get better at actually just, building relationships. And our job in business, is to build, the old phrase of raving fans. When people are on your side, they open doors, they make introductions, they help you complete transactions. And how do you build raving fans? Well, you do what everybody else isn't doing. So it's times like this when you can actually build more raving fans than ever before, because the most impactful way to build a raving fan is to build a emotional, unexpected connection. So what I mean by that is, now it's so easy to do. I mean, you can look at your referral sources and your top customers and, your partners that help you do business, and you can monitor their social media feeds. And every time there is something meaningful in their life, they've had a birth of a grandchild, or their child has, finished university, or there's been, some meaningful event in their life. It's so easy just to take a minute, send a small gift with an emotional, unexpected connection that just said, hey, listen, I understand you had your second grandchild. I'm thinking about you. Oh my goodness. You can send a $12 or $15 outfit to them. And that person receives that and they go, oh my God, I care. They care. And, now we have more time to do that. And we have more time to actually develop those processes and systems in our business. And I'm telling you, there is no secret to greater success than that. Those with the deepest, most personal relationships are always the most successful. And so many of us get caught up in transactional and, as much as we can possibly do. And I actually promote the opposite. I promote, dealing with customers who are a pain in the ass. I call them a PITA, a pain in the ass.
Okay.
They're asking and giving and sort of asking and taking and not giving anything and want the lowest rate and the lowest cost and are grinding all the time. Let somebody else do business with those customers. You're often better to just deselect them nicely and focus your energy on your database and your customers and your referral sources that, know, like, and trust you, that have a brilliant relationship with you, because they're going to deliver such a higher impact and emotional connection that is just going to harvest into so much more business than ever before. It really isn't rocket science, but there is some science to it.
So it's amazing. I think anybody that's watching us now and that's probably listening and that knows, my message is probably going, okay, Dave, how much did you pay this guy to say all that? It's literally, it's the same. It's a very similar message there. And everybody watching and listening, I mean, again, if you missed the intro and missed, here's an industry leader, a veteran in the business who has built massive companies with lots and lots of very successful salespeople. And there's the fundamental, there's the principles that he's working off of right there. It's still a relationship business, right? If we're only selling on transaction, anybody can get anything anywhere almost. When you build on relationship, transaction becomes secondary, rate becomes secondary. Now, I actually want to get into that in a moment and ask you a few questions about that, because I think that that's important for people to understand as well.
Dave, I'll make one more comment on that if I
Yeah.
could, sort of jump in
No,
there.
no, no,
But
no, no. Please do.
you know, it's funny because I'm going to speak on sort of behalf of both our industries on you know, salespeople in general, right? Whether
Yep.
it's real estate, whether it's, you know, the financial services, whether it's the broker community. You know, it's funny because I speak to so many agents all the time, and they're desperately always looking for new ways to market and to get out there and put their name, you know, out there in the public and bus benches and groups, and they're whining and dining, you know, referral sources. And if they just spent some of that activity working on their existing database, you know, it's funny because people who have been in the industry for an extended period of time who are successful, they'll all tell you that between 50 and 90% of all of the business year after year is repeat and referral business. So if you're telling me that 50 to 90% is repeat and referral business, why are you spending 90% of your time trying to generate new business? You have relationships that they already know you, they have a relationship with you, they negotiate less, you know, they're easy to get a hold of, they're just more awesome people to deal with. You know, the cost of acquisition is less because they're already a previous customer. So what I've said to people is actually take this time right now and just tweak your mindset a little bit and say, okay, right, I can't go out there. I'm not whining and dining. I'm not advertising right now. Look at this opportunity right now to actually build a better business for all of us going forward, and to really put the mechanisms in place to spend that 50 to 90% of our money and our effort on our own database and our partners that have been kind enough to refer us business in the past, right? And find those ways to build those raving fans and create those unexpected emotional connections. And that will pay dividends like more than ever before. But most importantly, you're valuing the customers and you're really going the extra mile that have already entrusted in you, and you're appreciating them and you're being grateful for their business. And in return, they're going to provide so many introductions and so much help and ongoing business forever and ever. So I can't, you know, not drive that point home. You know, build your database. If you don't have one right now, guys, start with Facebook. You know, just search with every single company you've ever worked with and just search for names. If you know them by first name and last name and they'll recognize you, add them to your database. And then start educating them slowly on what you do and what you're doing with your life right now and the value of working with a mortgage professional or a realtor. And slowly, you know, selling isn't telling. Selling is educating, just giving information slowly. And sooner or later, they'll reach out to you and they'll say, hey, you know what? I'm looking for a new house or I'm looking for a mortgage. Do you think you might want to help me out or could help me out?
70 to 90%, and I use those numbers of 70 to 90% of the business is coming from the database. It's coming from referral sources. Yet so many times when we go through and I do this a lot with my coaching clients where we really analyze their marketing, their budgeting, and where they're spending their dollars, 70 to 90% of the money they're spending is actually going out there trying to find the stranger, trying to find the prospect. And I've had the question many times, well, Dave, how do I feed the pipeline? Well, if you continue to work the 70, 90% of people that actually deliver your business and you continue to focus on them, you're going to spend a lot less money trying to market your business. You're going to see a much higher ROI, and you're going to end up getting that business that you're wondering where it's coming from. It's coming from right there,
Without
because that's
question.
not only repeat, that's not only new, but that's referral business.
Mm.
You know, and we're not moving every day. We're moving every, on average, 7 to 12 years, they say. So it's focus on that database. And I love what you said too about the Facebooks. You know, we've got that opportunity right now to go in and start to check out the social medias, make a list. Like I just went through this in one of my coaching classes yesterday with my group of, you know, and I gave them a resource guide that said, you know, who's missing from your list. Start to look through these, and it was about a 4-page document of who's missing, and just, you know, your hairdresser, your doctor, your dentist, whoever. Are they on your contact list? And a lot of times we get people that say, well, you know, I don't know, you know, they'll call me, or, well, they know I'm in the business. You're doing yourself a disservice if you're not out there actually having them on your list. And, you know,
Right.
another way that I phrase it is, if it would piss you off, if these people wouldn't work with you and they went to work with somebody else, you've got to ask yourself, why aren't they on your list? And if they're not on your list and it would bother you, well, that's you not taking advantage of an opportunity.
Right. There's two things I hate, and I'll just, you know, I'll put it right out there right now. There's two comments that I hear all the time, and it's number one, I'm not good at remembering names,
Yep.
and the second thing is people say I'm busy. Those are insidious sentences. Those are career killers. So number one, if you just say I'm not good at remembering names, and that's your excuse for not remembering names, oh, it's okay, I'm not very good at remembering names. You know, shame on you. You need to work on it. Right. The most important thing is that emotional connection. And I mean, I'm out there and I'm quite, you know, known in our industry for having this capacity to remember just, you know, thousands of names of people, but it doesn't come just by luck. It comes by every time meeting someone, making a quick note on my notes on my iPhone, where I met them, so that when I see them again 3 months later or 6 months later, and I go, oh yeah, that was the person that I met at, Sobeys on, in March on Valentine's Day or whatever it happened to be, and the other thing is I'm too busy. I know a lot of us think we're really busy, and we live a busy life. I get it. We have children and play dates and sports and, doctor's appointments and schools and, both spouses working. I absolutely get that. But, when we start looking at, most professionals, most sales professionals and how they spend their day, I run something called the vortex. And I take a square and I cut it into, 2 lines into 4 squares. And the bottom right square is the vortex. So if the things that I'm doing, if they aren't on my critical path, if they don't directly reflect on what pays me the highest return, what gives me the highest return of my time, it either gets prioritized in 1, 2, or 3. And if it's just a great idea and something I want to do, but it doesn't make my top 3 list, it goes into the vortex. And sooner or later, when I have time like now, I'll start pulling things out of the vortex. So 2 messages that I would leave. Number 1, prioritize your time, because a lot of things that we think we're doing, we can do a much better job selecting those items, those critical paths, putting things that maybe don't need to be done today, that aren't impactful in providing and building relationships into the vortex. And the other thing is, just a reminder again, is that remembering names is unbelievably important. It's so, you have to, that itself is such an easy way to separate yourself from all of your competitors. And people value that. It's like when I go to the restaurant, I go into my restaurant to see my buddy Chris, he's the chef, right? Or my buddy owns this, or introduced to my friend. We all, want to have that personal connection. And it's something that, many of us don't work hard enough on.
Well, listen, and that's where CRM comes in, right? I mean, and CRM look, I say CRM is just there to support, because, the best CRM is the one that you use. We've heard this for a long time, right? And that's really the truth, because if you want to use that excuse that you are not going to remember names, wonderful. Go into your CRM, just like you said,
Right.
Put in your note into your phone or whatever it be, put the note, where did I meet them? What did we talk about? Go and add it in. Take that 2 minutes to add that note in. Schedule your next touch point. We call that predictable days with income producing activities. Take that next touch point, schedule them ahead. Almost forget about the fact that you did all that, move on. And now in a month, 3 months, 6 months, whatever it be, or the next time you walk in that restaurant, look it up real quick. And when it pops up in your calendar and says, hey, it's time to call Gary, who's Gary again? Read the notes. Oh yeah, I met Gary at Sobeys. We talked about this and
Totally.
that. Hey, Gary, how are you? It's David. Yeah. Oh, hey, Dave, how you doing?
All right, let's jump in and talk mortgages.
Relationship. Anyhow, yeah, I could get lost down that rabbit hole, but I love the stuff that you were saying there. Here, tell me this. We know there's been a lot of conversation right now circling around about whether or not people who need to buy will still be able to get a mortgage. Can you shed some light on this for everybody? Will people still, I mean, with everything going on, can they still get a mortgage?
100%. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because I spent the last, 3 or 4 days on what seemed to be nonstop conference calls. And I spoke to, very senior leaders and presidents at Canadian lenders, spoke with regulators in our industry, and obviously a lot of professionals that are in the financial service sector. And I will give a lot of credit actually to Trudeau and his government. I wouldn't be considered necessarily a Trudeau fan. A lot of you would have saw me years ago on Face the Nation, one of 10 Canadians. But they have done an incredibly great job handling this crisis and backstopping the financial service sector and releasing cash requirements for lenders that they need to have on hand so they can deploy that capital into lending. And the federal government has also been putting immense pressure on the banks to make sure that they're very, very fair with Canadian consumers and making sure that they have credit available through this. And they've said that anyone who is operating opportunistically or taking advantage of the situation right now going forward is considered reprehensible and will not be, considered in favor. So because of that, the Canadian lenders are still lending. Now, obviously, if you've had a work outage or a stoppage or if you've been laid off, it's like any other time. You're not going to qualify for a mortgage. But if you still are employed, and you have a mortgage transaction in the band right now that's scheduled to close, it will absolutely close, and the lenders are totally committed.
Okay, thank you for that, because I know that that's been a big sense of confusion, a lot of fear around obviously the homeowner that's looking to do that, as well as the realtor who's looking to make that happen. So thank you for the clarification there. Now, we also saw that the BOC recently dropped the rates with two major cuts very recently, and we've yet seen the banks increase their posted rates. So what's the deal with this? Why, if the BOC goes down, do the banks go up?
Yeah, probably the number one question we're getting right now. People are saying, "What? I don't understand it."
Yeah.
Right? We've had the Bank of Canada, drop 100 basis points. The first time they ever dropped half a point was 2009 in the global credit crisis, and then earlier in March they did, and 10 days later they dropped it another 50 basis points. So the consumer automatically thinks, "Oh my goodness, there's an incredible time right now to get a mortgage." Well, here's the reality of it. It really becomes sort of supply and demand. So if you look at the lenders right now, contrary to public belief, their actual cost has risen considerably. So in order to, they're because of that, and because of the sort of massive amount of home equity lines of credit and the massive amounts of sort of, the requests for early refinance with pop-ups, their books are starting to get out of balance. So in order to kind of slow down that incoming volume, what do? Well, they actually start raising rates a little bit in order to dissuade, that heavy onslaught of volume. So, the fact of the matter is that, Canadian banks have a few ways of lending money. Number one, their deposits, their personal deposits from Canadians, and primarily their commercial deposits, the business deposits that are coming in are radically down right now. Businesses are closed, so the new incoming money into the Canadian banks is a lot less. Right. Also, the CMB, the actual Canadian bond, instrument pool, the investors are looking for a higher return on that because they're much riskier right now. So, you're finding that when we'd expect rates to come down in order to safeguard the system, the Canadian banks are, number one, narrowing the discount on variable rates. So it used to be prime minus 75 or prime minus 80. That's starting to narrow. And then obviously on fixed rate, the 5-year rate, you're starting to see those increase. And that's the reason why.
So are people, I mean, I guess the question would beg, are we still looking to the mortgage broker rather than the bank itself? I mean, are we getting better
Sure.
leverage there?
Of course. Yeah. I mean,
Right.
the bank has their product that they offer, singular, and, the mortgage professionals look at every bank and every rate and every product every day. So, the banks, obviously pay us to, bring them that client, that qualified client right now. So if you've used a mortgage professional in the past, it's like using a realtor. You know, you very, very, very few people are going, to sell their home directly. And if you've used a mortgage broker and you've realized how much time we can save the consumer and how we can package all the information, the information rather, and then how we can shop the banks to find the suitable product and the best product in terms of pricing. It makes a ton of sense. We are busier than we have ever been right now. Now we expect it'll drop off maybe in the next month, but in the last week, mortgage professionals, Canadian lenders are busier than we have ever been because people are looking to put a buffer or a cushion in place in the event that they do lose their job or the outage lasts longer than expected.
There's an interesting one. So, I mean, so a lot of people are actually reaching out to their mortgage brokers right now to go, hey, what can you do to help
Unbelievable.
my situation?
Unbelievable. It's crazier than we've ever seen it.
They're
The other
okay.
thing, and the other thing I want to say too, and I
Yeah,
know it's
yeah.
going to come up on this call, is mortgage deferrals. So the federal government came up with the announcement of mortgage deferrals, and the big six Canadian banks quickly jumped on that and said that we'll all support that. A lot of the other lenders that aren't considered the big six Canadian banks, but are very meaningful, strong, lending, companies in Canada have also followed suit, and followed the big six and have provided this mortgage deferral. The concern that we're seeing right now is the banks are getting, and I've spoken to a couple of presidents recently, they're getting 5,000 to 8,000 inbound calls per day of people inquiring, and they're getting thousands of emails every single day of people asking about mortgage deferrals. So the first thing I would say is that if you're listening to this podcast and you haven't lost your job, don't call for a mortgage referral because it's unlikely you're going to get one. Number two, if you haven't lost your job, but you just think you want to inquire about what happens if I do and what is the process, please don't call right now. Give the banks and the lenders a few weeks. What's happening now is they're getting so many calls, it's clogging the system. So those people who actually need it, who have been laid off, are not getting through, or they're waiting 6 or 7 or 9 hours to get through.
Wow.
So it's incredibly important, right? The deferral is for those who need it, who have suffered job loss, either both spouses or one of two spouses, and they are given priority right now. Anyone else calling, looking for information, is just doing a disservice to everyone else. So please keep that in mind.
No, great words of advice there for everybody to hear. And again, this even comes back to the whole premise around how people have been hoarding. I'm just going to come out and say toilet paper. Like it's save some room for everybody else. Make sure that people that really, really do need the help. And I mean, I guess we're also probably seeing a lot of people that might have over leveraged themselves a little bit to get into the market at some point when they, bottom line over leverage, that they're probably looking to do the same thing right now, but they're not going to be having that same opportunity that the folks who really do need it are going to have.
I mean, believe it or not, we don't have a huge problem with over leverage in Canada. I mean, the government has been incredibly prudent, and even going back, from when they, put the qualifying rate up, it was in anticipation of rising rates. So,
right.
A lot of Canadians actually have some bandwidth and some available credit. There's about 9 million. There's 6 million homeowners with mortgages here in Canada right now. And we actually have a fair amount of equity in our home. So we're not seeing a ton of that. And on the other side of that going forward, because of what's happening right now, we do suspect that the lending rates are going to be, continue to be low for probably at least the next couple of years, even with the increases inside of the last, week in the volatility in the mortgage rates right now. The mortgage rates are still at historic lows.
Absolutely. And they were even before this happened.
Yeah, they are still unbelievably low. So, there has never been a better time to, unfortunately need a top up or, or need mortgage financing. It is still incredibly low.
So let's talk to that then when it comes to what we talk about the stress test, right? Because we know that came in to cool off the major markets, which bottom line did obviously make it tougher for many people to get a mortgage, which in my mind kind of meant that the realtors should have been finding that mortgage broker to be their best friend so they could be working some magic to make it easier to get the required funding. And now the government is saying that they're working or they've worked to relax the rules. Is this truly the case? And like, with that, have we seen the relationship between the broker and the agent become stronger?
Yeah, I mean, no question, right? The government, had announced that in April it was actually changing the formula for qualifying. They realized that they wanted a greater percentage of Canadians to be able to qualify for mortgages, and they realized that the qualifying rate, based on bank posted, was maybe a little bit overboard. So they put the actual, the new announcement and the new stress test on permanent hold now as we get through the COVID-19 crisis. But contrary to public belief, the government, there's two areas that the government really wants to see, stability in long term. It's the Canadian financial system, like we're seeing right now with them backstopping and coming in, and it's the Canadian housing. I mean, owning a home in Canada is a privilege. We've been, global leaders in home ownership. CMHC and, the other companies, Genworth, have done a very good job in helping to facilitate home ownership. So they're not looking to diminish that. But as I said, it's been very fluid and it's changing very quickly now with COVID-19. But I do expect when we get through this, the government to actually continue with that reformulation of that stress test, and that will actually enable more Canadians to get back in again like it used to be.
Right. And so again, that relationship there, I think is so important, right? With realtors really having their resource, right? I mean, with these relaxing rules, I would think that they want that. What would you say, or I guess the question there would be, what would you say are good ground rules to build a realtor sort of mortgage broker relationship, a partnership now, to go about that? What I guess is the right way? I mean, we talked about relationship. Is it that simple and plain?
Well, I mean, number one, every mortgage professional should be looking to build relationships with realtors. I mean, they are, the only ongoing source of new business activity that I know of that is consistent and repetitive over and over and over. And even more importantly, on the other side, I mean, if you're a realtor and you're watching this, mindset or this mind share call rather, I urge you to reach out to a mortgage professional. I mean, you know, doing what you do every single day and not having a deep relationship where you can just call somebody up and run by, scenarios. It is so frustrating for all of you. And I know a lot of you obviously ask your clients right away, do you have financing in place? And the client traditionally comes back and says, yeah, I've been working at the bank or been at the bank for many years and financing is no problem. And then we find out later on in the process that, they did have an approval, but it wasn't approval for enough, or there was conditions that simply couldn't be met. If you have a mortgage professional working with you and you just hand them off to, with you on a 3-way call to that mortgage professional, you're going to find that you're going to have so many more deals closed. You're going to actually provide a service to that end customer. They're going to get a lower cost of borrowing, a better rate. The transition, from selecting that dream home and actually funding that mortgage is going to be much smoother. So I think it is all about relationships. It comes down to that comment, I'm busy again. A lot of realtors say, I'm busy. And, and I know what I'm doing. And I talk to, the customers and I make sure they're qualified, but we see it over and over and over again. If you get and build a deep, 2-way friendship with a realtor and a mortgage professional, I promise you, life will get easier. You'll do more transactions. Your customers will be happier. They'll get lower cost of funding and the transaction will go smoother, hands down.
So, okay. And I want to clarify something here as well for anybody that may not know. By having that relationship, which is again just something everybody needs to be doing on a regular basis, by having that relationship with the mortgage broker, I pick up the phone and I say, "Hey, listen, I've got my my client Gary, and he says he's got qualified, or maybe he's not qualified, or whatnot. Can you have a conversation with him?" Does that call, does any of that initial process cost anybody in any part of that any money at that moment in time? Are we signing something? Are we
Zero.
committing to something? Or are we just having a conversation at that point?
You're just having a conversation. And listen, even if you're a realtor and one of your customers says, yeah, I assure you, I'm approved and I have funding in place at my bank. What I would say every single time is, listen, I understand that. And good. I've been working with, this mortgage agent from Dominion Lending Centers, Canada's national mortgage company. We do more mortgages every day than any other Canadian bank. And what they'll do is just speak to this mortgage professional and just tell them what you got right now. Maybe they can save you money. Maybe they can give you a piece of advice. Maybe they can, if nothing else, they can give you certainty that the product that you're choosing at the bank and the rate that they're providing you is competitive and you should stay there. And just get them into that habit, by making the introduction that way of getting a second opinion and working with a mortgage professional much, much more often than not. Is that consumer going to say, wow, thank you very much. I may have decided to stay with my bank and have funding, but I got so much information. I learned so much more. I appreciate you caring for me and giving me that education. Or in most cases, they're going to say, wow, it wasn't what I expected. I totally misunderstood, what working with a mortgage professional represented or meant to me. And oh my goodness, I'm so happy that you made the introduction.
I think that was a big point to clarify right there, because I think that that's the fear sometimes, is that we're committing to something, we're putting pen to paper, we're going to be stuck in something we cannot get out of without maybe the proper knowledge. And the clarification right here is, again, guys, this is simply a conversation. This is simply getting more information. This is finding out what your options are. And in today's world with where we're at, no better time to have that relationship or build that relationship and reach out and make that connection point, right? You're going to serve your clients better at the end of the day.
Yeah, David, one of the things that I would just maybe jump in, and it's probably, off track a little bit, but working with, our mortgage professionals and probably, the same with realtors, is the focus of our message. I recently read a statistic from the U.S. Bureau of Labor, and it talked about the power of the female movement, female engagement. And it said in the next decade, 2/3 of all wealth in North America is going to be controlled by the female demographic. And I've really said to our mortgage professionals that when you're out there and marketing and now working on your database and reaching out, or when you're hiring more staff for your team or executive leadership, you really, really need to be mindful and focus on, a set of those, badass women, because they are moving at a faster pace than ever before. Here's the stats that I found incredibly interesting.
Yeah, go for it.
Today already, 91% of all home buying decisions, the actual home buying decision is made by the female in the household. 92% of all decisions on where we're going to go on holidays and how we're going to spend our 2 weeks off is made by the female demographic. 89% of the general household decisions, what we're going to have for dinner, is made by the female demographic. 93% of what we're going to eat is made by the female demographic, and 66% of the computers that we use to operate our business, right, are now made at home by the female demographic. So if you're on here right now and you're, communicating via your, you're building your database or communicating, make sure that your messaging is really focused around the female demographic. I mean, they are such a powerful demographic. They are more patient than us. They multitask better than us. I mean, the power of a 90-second, carve out to work between a busy mother that has a couple of kids and she has 90 seconds to make a phone call. They get so much more done, and it's the exact reason, and they're more empathetic than we're seeing, than ever before. And they are coming at us, and they are leading, North America at a fiery pace. So in your marketing, make sure you keep that in mind when you hire, when you're bringing on new people. Second thing that I would mention, and that I did a long talk on earlier this year, is ethnic minority. If I look at my 6,000 mortgage agents in Canada, and if I look at my top 10, which we've done, we did a study and an interview with our top 10, 60% of our top 10 were mortgage professionals that were ethnic minority. So in other words, they came here from another country, either with their parents, or they left another country. Their parents brought them over here. When they came over to Canada, their parents came over as, doctors or dentists or accountants or, some professional designation, and they had to come to Canada and they had to get jobs as security guards and, homemakers and house cleaners and, factory workers, because their designation wasn't recognized in Canada. And it's extraordinary that the children of those immigrant minorities found a way to represent 50% of our very top in the country. They had no connections. Many didn't know the language. They came over here with very, very little money, but they had the leadership skills of their parents, and they realized the sacrifices and how hard that they made, that they worked, and they applied that in their business. They made those sacrifices, and today they're industry leaders. So, if you're building your real estate team, if you're hiring staff, if you're marketing, those two segments, the ethnic minority and the female demographic, are the most powerful segments in the Canadian, North American marketplace going forward. Maybe that's a little helpful for, how you run your business going forward. But for us, it is a huge focus.
I love both of those points, and I think you just got some massive accolades right there on both of those. And I mean, both very good points. I mean, I might say with the female demographic, I really believe that all that is now is us, us just actually having the nerve to admit it, because I'd say they certainly do an amazing job, and I'm envious of the multitasking, but also the power that they bring to the table. Because I know, doing the circuit the way I do as well with a lot of the conferences and speaking, we see a lot more of this now, that the female movement, and it certainly is powerful. And much the same with the the minorities that are coming in, and the different ethnic backgrounds. This is something anybody that is from Canada, from the United States, from North America, that kind of goes, well, it's hard. Well, I don't know. Well, I can't do it. Yeah, but many people are, and many people are coming from a lot less than we had or we started with, are doing it. So it's very possible.
No question.
Now, we've been asking the question for a lot, many years now, about what is or who is the big disruptor in our industry. And I say our industry being our sort of real estate mortgage industry, right? We're seeing the new process of iBuying, which is certainly right up there. I have for years been saying that really the people themselves, we the people, our mortgage professionals, our realtors, are the real disruptor here. because I believe that everybody really needs to continue to remain relevant and continue to build the relationships. And with all this influx of technology and all these opportunities to kind of hide behind a screen, hide behind a phone, we're missing that real deal connection point. So I'm curious to know, I'm going to ask you too, what do you see as the biggest disruptor facing any salesperson in our industry on a daily basis? Again, especially in our current state of the world with COVID. And of course, what suggestions do you have for anybody to deal with whatever it is you feel that is?
Sure. So, I mean, the biggest disruptor, hands down, is technology and our ability to communicate and the speed that we can communicate now than ever before. And we are going to learn a lot through this COVID-19 experience. I was able to deploy 150 head office people to home in a very, very short period of time, uninterrupted. And a lot of other companies and industries are finding the same. I've been using Zoom and some of the online technology teams and others more than I ever have been before. And we're getting quite comfortable with them right now. And I suspect that our technology and our use of technology around the 360 ecosystem in the mortgage or real estate, community is going to be vastly different going forward because of the experience going through. I'm looking at appraisals right now, and appraisals are being done by the consumer taking photos of the inside of the house and uploading them, and the appraiser going to the exterior, taking exteriors, and doing what they would be considered a house visit or a drive-by, where lawyers and closing officers have been restricted in many ways and had limitations onto the ability to close transactions without seeing the consumer face to face or an in-branch closing is being loosened. We're seeing a faster transmission of doing the entire transaction front to back all electronically. And it is incredibly interesting how fast these requirements are being loosened up and how fast we are able to now operate in a virtual world. So my message to everyone on this call is there's so much available right now in technology. And if you're not using social media and if you're not investing the time, I promise you, you're going to be chasing the bus rather than driving the bus. You have to be in the front seat of that bus. You have to engage. There is no such thing as I'm too old and I can't teach a dog new tricks. And, I don't know how to use social media. LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, they are easy. They are point and click. So now is the time that you have to say, I have to get a handle on this. I have to commit. I have to build my database. I have to communicate. I have to educate more than ever before because it's happening. And it can be a blessing or a curse. And I believe it's a blessing. I believe that we can do more business. I mean, we are, in my opinion, save and except the COVID-19 crisis right now, we are in the golden years. We have more opportunity than anybody has ever seen before. A lot of us talk about the good old days and it was easier. It was easier for young kids, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. I don't believe that. I believe that I can get every answer in the world right now. I can get educated. I can get updated. I can be cutting edge by looking at my screen and in seconds. And if I'm not engaged to take on new practices and to learn, the best investment you can make, David, is in yourself. End of story, period. It isn't in any systems. It's in habits. And your habit to self-educate, to become better, to communicate, right? And use the valuable resources like technology that is at our fingertips right now.
Well, that's the beauty. That's where I was showing my phone. I mean, we all have it right there. You've got the access to the information. You got the access to be able to self-develop. You got the access to go out there and talk to, hundreds, if not thousands of people at the click of a button. There is no limitation on doing video calling anymore. Hence what we're up to right here. I mean, not only are we recording this thing, we're looking at each other and talking to each other while we're looking at each other. We're broadcast live to however many, people are watching or going to watch. Sure. Right. So the technology is there. I think that everybody putting limitations on themselves. I agree with you there. And again, this is where I come back and I say, yes, the technology. And I also believe we, the people, become our own limitations, our own disruptors. So you've got to embrace this stuff. Now, to that same point, then, when we look at today's consumer, who's easily way ahead of the consumer from even 15 years ago, and the mortgage broker obviously has a much wider bandwidth of products than any bank or credit union, as we've already mentioned here. Do you see limitations then on the broker's ability to continue to deliver the huge width of band or the huge bandwidth of more competitive products based on the fact that, the consumer is more educated?
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's going to be periods where obviously the bandwidth is incredibly busy. Right now, I mean, I talked about the inquiries from Canadian consumers to the banks on this deferral program. We're seeing the exact same thing with mortgage brokers. I mean, we are getting inundated with emails and inquiries about what's going on right now and access to our beloved equity in our homes. But mortgage brokers are very, very high capacity. I mean, most of them are career mortgage brokers. I don't think we're going to have any problem with capacity going forward. I mean, we continue to do a better job educating the consumer. I mean, listen, if you're not going to a mortgage professional to get your mortgage or at least get the information, I promise you, you're paying too much, right? How can you go to one bank with one product and a very, very narrow suite of offers and not go to a mortgage professional that's going to look at the rates from every bank, every product, every single day? Those stats that I was talking about earlier, there's 9.91 million homeowners today in Canada. There's 6 million with mortgages. And there's also 4.82 million tenants out there in Canada. The average Canadians that have a fixed rate mortgage, about 3 out of 4. 21% have variables and 5% have combos. And last year, 2019, the average mortgage rate for Canadians was 3.14. You can get that or better today. Mm-hmm. So, there has never, ever been a better time when it comes just from a sheer perspective of cost. You're not going to get that typically by walking into just, your local financial institution, or maybe you'll get it if you negotiate with them, but it's certainly not a reflection of their posted rate. So, we can give you a lot of information. We can give you product explanation around what happens if you break your mortgage, early, and how does interest rate differential, kick in, and what does that mean to me? A lot of consumers go in and they choose what they think to be the lowest rate, and they realize that the mortgage they've signed has got some very onerous terms in the event that they break that mortgage early. And, I don't know the exact stat offhand, but it's somewhere around 60% of all consumers will break their mortgage before the end of term, before that 5-year term. And then all of a sudden they realize that they have this huge penalty, right? So the penalty is $12 or $14 or $16,000. And when you add that penalty into the rate, the actual rate they actually ended up taking was not, 3.5%. It was 5.5 or 6% because of that rate. That's where a mortgage professional can come in and say, whoa, it is not about the lowest rate. Certainly, we're going to get you the lowest rate. We do more mortgages than anybody else in the Canadian economy by any other lender. We have access to all of those rates. But I'm going to explain the unforeseen, the hidden things, like the interest rate differential, the penalties in the event that you get transferred or you have to sell your home or you're into a financial crisis or you just need something bigger because you're having twins. Right? That's where we really come into play and where we can really help you. Listen, the lowest rate, no problem. That's what we do, right? But, the education that you get working with a mortgage professional, like the education that you get working with a realtor, especially good ones, make all the difference in the world. That is the value of working with them. And to your point, 95% of all transactions that we do, there's no cost to the Canadian consumer. The banks are paying us because they don't have to have additional bricks and mortar and staff. They're paying us to find those customers, to collect all the documentation, to qualify those customers, to verify employment, and to bring that consumer to them. It's a no-brainer.
Well, this is the thing too, right? Is that we know that the consumer is starting to realize that the service insight and exactly to what you just said there, we will get you the lowest rate. That being said, we're going to educate you. And I believe that the consumers really started to realize that education, that knowledge can in a lot of ways be even more important than rate. And hence when a few minutes ago when I asked the question about, am I signing anything? Am I committing to anything just by having that conversation? And really, and you said no, right? And that's the thing is, so the fact that we know that this information can even be more powerful, and you're setting me up to really understand what's going to happen in 3 years, 5 years, any refis or whatever. What's, that be like, how should the industry, I guess, be moving ahead with knowledge like that? We know, again, as we said, the consumer has more access to information. So how is the industry moving ahead, knowing that they've got the access to information? At the same time, too, though, they're still looking for guidance. They're looking for leadership. What should the mortgage brokers be doing with that? I mean, I guess I'm answering my own question by almost saying it's back to relationship.
Yeah, and I mean it's back to education, right? I mean we have to to your point earlier, we have to use those social tools, the technology, all realtors, all mortgage professionals, all service providers, to share the message, because a lot of the things that we're talking about today and the explanation around the penalty that you and I just went through, unfortunately, many consumers still don't know that. And they go, oh my God, I got the very best, rate, or the very
Right.
lowest rate. And all of a sudden, 24 months later, they have to come out of that mortgage or break that mortgage, or, for some reason. And they go, oh, what do you mean I got to pay a $20,000 penalty? They don't get it. It's just absolutely alarming to them. So I think we're doing a pretty good job. I mean, I know from our group of companies, we're out there all the time. We're taking the lead when it comes to social interaction and education. And podcasts like this, David, are very valuable, because there's people who are listening to us right now that are going, ding, light bulb goes on. I didn't know that. We all love to learn new things. I mean, we're busy in life, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we're not expected as a consumer to know all the hidden terms of your mortgage document. We get that. But what we do hope that you do is at least make the initial inquiry. Go online, find a mortgage professional in your community. Try to deal with one that obviously has got a recognizable national brand. They're going to be there, and it's all about that education. And the realtors play a part, and we play a part, and people like you play a part. But I think we're doing a pretty good job. I mean, consumers. A person who uses a mortgage professional the first time never ever goes back to the bank. They always come back to that mortgage professional. It's for all those reasons that you and I just cited.
Yeah, and I think we've definitely conveyed that value today. So I want to take that and kind of shift for a moment, because I know off the top I had mentioned that you are involved with a number of different initiatives, and there was one that I believe, and again, I've only got so much context around this, so I'm hoping you can share a little bit more here. But Bikes for Kids.
Mm-hmm.
This is something that you started, or that you're involved with. Just can you tell us all, I guess, more about this, and if there's opportunities for people to get involved, how does that work?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think with any, type of good fortune, good health, success comes, responsibility. And, people often reach out to me and they say, what can I do? Or let's start an initiative, or let's, give back to something. And the first thing that I would always say to people is find something that you can be involved in your own community, where you can actually see and feel the impact and make the difference. They say you're not living until you're giving. And, some of the finest relationships that I have been those that we've been involved in around social initiatives. And we started Bikes for Kids 6 or 7 years ago. And it was really after I attended a Toy Mountain type event. And I remember saying to the organizers, wow, there's not many new bicycles. And I remember, my first bike and the freedom that it gave me. And it was alarming to me when we started to do our homework, just how many children are growing up in struggling households that never got a first bike, or a brand new first bike, or get it very, very late in life when they're 9 or 10. So we started something called Bikes for Kids throughout Canada. Started in Vancouver with Global News and some other media outlets, and we've given away more than 9,000 brand new bikes
Wow.
to kids at Christmas. And it's a very cool initiative. We all remember our first, love, and our first house, and our first bike, and our first wife. Just kidding. We all remember our first, right? So, the fact of doing something around, a first bike was kind of cool. The other thing that we've done a lot of, and it's been very near and dear to my heart, I was the founder of something called I Am Someone. And
I saw that one there before as well. Yeah.
I Am Someone it was the first ever in Canada texting platform. To talk, if you want to text in your child and you have a crisis and you're being bullied by someone, because kids don't go to their parents and make complaints. They're embarrassed by it. And today bullying is absolutely insidious and damaging online. And it's so easy to say the most vile, rude things. And, our youth are unfortunately being robbed of their personalities, and worst case scenario, are taking their lives and cutting and doing damage. that is very near and dear to my heart. We also are the title sponsor and have been for several years for another program called Bullying Ends Here. And it's a Calgary RCMP member that was raised in a family, and he grew up as a gay young adult and was ostracized and picked on and beat up and his entire life. And he's gone across the country and is responsible for saving thousands of lives speaking. And Tad is just an amazing guy. You can go to Bullying Ends Here and find out his story. But the point of all of it is, just find your spark, find something in your own community that is meaningful for you, and make a difference. Number one, you're gonna build some of the most incredible friendships with like-minded people, but you're really gonna, earning a living and trying to become successful and taking care of our family and community. Those are all really important things. I get it. We all want those things. But the fastest way to do that is to get involved in a social initiative that you can feel and touch and see the results. And for us and for our company and for our message, there's nothing more important. I mean, we have to look after our own. People often say to me, Gary, what keeps you up at night? That's a common interview question, and it's the health and well-being of our team and our staff and their families, so that we can continue to make a difference. Sure, we're in business. We're here to provide a service. We're here to, make a living, to hopefully be successful. But there's a very clear path on how to do that, and it begins with helping others in your own backyard.
And I'm sorry, can you repeat, where can people go to find out more about any one of those that you
can go to
just
Dominion
mentioned?
Learning Center's Bikes for Kids, right?
Okay.
Just search Bikes for Kids. You can go if you want to, if you have a child that wants to text. Our texting platform is 211-2TALK, 211-2TALK. And Bullying Ends Here, bullyingendshere.ca.
I encourage everybody, check that out. Let's spread the word about that. Let's get that stuff out there. We know that mental health, distress, helping people is a massive thing in today's world. And I know that that's been an underlying conversation, and something that I've been saying for the past number of weeks now, watching even what's going on as adults and the way people are treating each other during this time. And I think that everybody just needs to step up and be a lot more positive, a lot more helpful to each other. So I think it's absolutely incredible what you guys are doing with that stuff. Now, just before we go, I got sort of two final questions for you. One of them is, being an industry leader, when you first started all of this, you obviously had a vision for, I guess, back then when you started in this business. What do you see next? Where do you see the industry going from here?
Well, I mean, hey, listen.
And I know that's loaded.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I mean, I see, so we talk about industry, talking the mortgage industry, the financial service industry, the real
I guess
estate
kind of
industry.
this mortgage real estate industry of ours, this part of it of just, when we talk about the way people are going to, I guess, do their business,
Sure.
maybe what's going to happen, the mindsets of people, especially maybe even coming out of COVID.
Sure. So we're in two spaces, right? Realtors are in the home ownership space, and realtors are in the financial service sector. Number one, Canadians are going to continue to want homes, right? It's where we raise our family. It's where we create memories. It's where we, derive our community involvement, from its ground zero. Number two, we're in the financial service sector around money. And the one thing about money is that, everyone needs it. So the desire going forward is not going to change. How we interact going forward with the consumer, I think is going to change a little bit. We know that, 97 or 98% of all real estate transactions right now are beginning on the World Wide Web. So, we're in a really, really great spot as mortgage professionals and realtors because we're more conservative by nature in Canada, and people still want that, that face-to-face interaction. They want to get all their information. They want to provide documentation. They want to shop. They want to compare. They want to, make sure they're loaded with all the information to make a decision online. But, in most cases, they still really value the relationship. So I think a hybrid going forward is going to be, sort of the norm. I think, we are going to go to more of the cycle with the millennials online. They're going to need less and less of that human interaction. So I just think we got to be on high alert, and we have to, know that as I said earlier, the embracing of technology to make the transaction quicker, faster, and more efficient is going to be vital. I do not think realtors, our mortgage professionals, our financial planners are going away, not at all.
I agree.
But I think that we have to make sure that our business is reflective of multi-channels. So we have to be set up to be able to do, the complete 360 transaction online. We have to know that. We have to educate, ourselves. We can't just say, hey, listen, it's not going away. And let's just, if hope, right, is your strategy for being successful in the future, you're in big trouble, right? You have to engage. You have to learn the digital revolution, right? Because it's going to be more important, right, with that personal interaction. So I think the future is bright for us. I think that more consumers are starting to understand the power of working with a mortgage professional, the value that we bring, the education that we bring, the guidance that we bring, the competitive landscape that we bring in terms of getting the lenders competing for your mortgage business, the fact that it doesn't cost any money to work with a mortgage professional in the vast amount of transactions that we do. So I think the future is incredibly bright for us.
And go figure, with the times we're in right now, there's no better time to really buckle down and start to figure out what those systems are if you're missing them, and really start to embrace them. So with all that being said, what last tips do you want to share with anybody listening, or would you suggest that anybody do as they finish this right now? Anything you want to just say as the last words there?
Sure. Yeah. Last words I'd give you is a couple of different things. Take this opportunity, working from home, self-isolation, to work on your personal development, to become better. Find an area in your business that maybe you haven't maximized on. The most obvious one is building your database and reaching out, picking up the phone and calling every single customer from your oldest to your newest, and just saying, hey, it's Gary at DLC. I just wanted to call and check in. Is everything okay? Do you have any pressures right now, financial pressures right now? None of us know how long this self-isolation is going to last. Do you need us to give you some advice on, creating a buffer? Or do you just want to talk? Do you want to ask questions about deferrals? Look to build raving fans, right? Find ways to reach out on social media right now and just, pop in other conversations and check in, I think is incredibly valuable. And then, work with the government. I mean, they're doing a good job right now, and follow the advice. Obviously frequent hand washing, cleaning surfaces, self-isolation. But one of the things I've been talking about all week is that, and I think we're doing a better job in Canada, but where the breakdown right now is in the younger community, our kids who aren't taking this serious and are still out there and not, self-isolating, and they're transmitting this disease. So if you're a parent, go home and have that hard conversation and remind your children just how important it is right now. Listen, we're going to get through this. We've been through, 9/11. We've been through, not us, but, in the early 1900s, the Spanish flu with, with millions of lives lost. We've been through the global credit crisis. We've been through so much. We'll get through this. I mean, listen, and it's going to make us stronger, and it's going to make us more cohesive as a community, and it's going to make us tighter, and we're going to come out of it, with a much better understanding and familiarity around technology. So look at this as a gift. Be a beacon of hope. Let's not get into this negative crap about, oh my God, and I'm worried. I get it. There's anxiety and angst, but be that beacon of hope, be positive, and together as a community and as a country, we're going to come out the other side. When we do, there's going to be a V curve like you've never seen before.
Oh, it's going to be amazing. Gary, I know you are a very busy man. All the initiatives and your companies, they're all proof of that. I truly, truly appreciate the time and the insights that you shared with us today. And I want to thank you very much for being a guest on the Mindshare podcast.
Absolute privilege. Thanks for having me, and we'll talk soon, David.
You bet.
You're either listening to this on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, or Spotify. Or maybe you downloaded our free Industry Syndicate podcast app. Or maybe you went to my website, mindshare101.com. And while you're on my site, make sure to download your free copy of the 7 Ways to Communicate ebook to help you build more mindshare so you can get more market share. And sign up for personal one-to-one mindshare coaching so you can achieve everything you want in life. Wherever you like to consume your content, please rate, review, and subscribe. And if you haven't yet, connect with me on Facebook at Mindshare101 and on Instagram at David Greenspan 101. This has been another episode of the Mindshare Podcast. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and stay healthy.